What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be going over all of the latest Battlefield 2042 info that the devs gave us just a few days ago, and we're actually going to be comparing every single change from the 2042 beta to the current build of the game so that you guys can see a direct comparison of the changes. DICE gave us some info and updates on stuff like the UI changes, the attachment system, the Comoros and the ping system, and even the insertion flow, which is essentially entering a game, and the end of round flow too. And so, like I said, we are going to compare some of my own beta footage to the new build just to show you guys how much has actually changed, and then I'll give some quick thoughts on it at the end as well. Before we get into it though, if you guys are new to the channel and you end up enjoying the video, then do consider subscribing and turning on those notifications so that you don't miss out on any upcoming Battlefield 2042 content. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. So the biggest changes that have been made so far are mostly to do with the UI, or the user interface, and for those who don't know what that is essentially how you interact with the game and get information and all that kind of thing. So essentially the HUD and really just anything that pops up on your screen in layman's terms. The first thing we're going to compare is the kill feed, kill log, and XP feed, or score feed, whichever you prefer to call it. And these are the things that pop up on your screen when you get a kill, for example. We can see here in the beta footage that the kill log over on the left was very basic and was essentially just plain white text, whereas it has now been updated with color coding. So obviously green is your own team and red is the enemy team, and then the white stuff is the weapon that was used, alongside some coloring for in-game events too, like capturing or losing a sector, for example. Now for the kill feed or XP feed, again, these just have different names depending on who you ask, but in the beta you can see it was essentially just all red or orange text. It was super basic and didn't have the weapon or anything, it just said their name, whereas now it has white for the weapon as well as the XP gain on the right of the name, and then it also gives all of the updates for XP gain that were on the right of screen. So even if you capture an objective or defend an objective, for example, it will actually show up there rather than over on the right like it did in the beta, and this is essentially how it was in Battlefield 4, so it is nice to have that back as well. Now, another really big change is the critical alert messages up on the top of your screen. In the beta, these were genuinely intrusive. They took up way too much room, and they were either teal or red depending on the message, so they were just big, huge, colorful things on the top of your screen. But as you can see, they've now made it like a transparent dark banner with either teal or red text depending on the message, and I think it looks much nicer this way. I wouldn't complain if it was even a little bit smaller, but I'm pretty happy with how it is compared to the beta. We can also see that the compass is now permanently down at the bottom of the screen. It was previously only visible when ADSing, but it is now there at all times, unless of course they allow you to turn that off, which I assume they will, but that is a nice change nonetheless. Now we can also see here in the kill cam that they've really updated that to give you a lot more information about the enemy that killed you, giving you their weapon and full loadout for the weapon, and also a health bar with a bigger number too. They did have the enemy health in the beta, but it was just like really tiny down the bottom of the screen, so I'm glad they fixed that, and I think it looks pretty solid now. There's really not too much I can think of on the kill cam that probably needs changing. Another small change is that they actually fully highlighted the enemy rather than just a red outline. Not the most drastically important thing, but I think it just makes it a little bit easier to see, so I'd say I like that change overall. They also changed the scoreboard a little bit too, mostly just the transparency, but I really do wish they would just give us the normal scoreboard like in every other game. So as nice as the new one looks, I still feel like it doesn't really do what it needs to do, unfortunately. Now lastly, they have also changed the ping system too. We can see the player pinging this tank here, which essentially just wasn't in the beta for the most part, and alongside the ping system they have also added the Comoros, which is that sort of like pinwheel where you can give commands or say thank you or whatever, and that is pretty important on console since you can't really chat, and so I'm very glad they have added that in as well. Now moving on from the UI, another huge change that they've made, and keep in mind most of these changes were already being done, it's just that they weren't in the beta build, so it's not like they've, you know, changed all of these on the fly in the last like 2 weeks. But yeah, one big area that is different is the attachment system and the loadouts. Now in the beta there were obviously no options in the menu to equip attachments to your weapon. You essentially just had to spawn in and then just use the plus system, but we were shown here that you actually can change your attachments from the menu just like in every previous game, and you can choose your attachments that go into the plus system, so it isn't just like 3 random attachments, for example. They've confirmed that the attachments you use in the first slot, so the one closest to the center of the plus system, they will be the spawn attachments. So if you have a red dot in that first scope slot, when the game starts your weapon will have the red dot, and also that if you change to an ACOG scope, for example, and then die and spawn back in, that weapon will be using whatever you previously had on. So we all know that the AK-24 had issues where, you know, you had to redo the plus system each time you spawned. That won't be an issue in the full game. If you spawn in with a red dot, change to a 3x scope, die and spawn back in, well, the 3x scope will stay on until obviously you want to change to whatever you want. Now on PC in the beta, there was actually some stats or like descriptions over on the left when you use the plus system, but on console that actually wasn't there. So in the full game, when you change your attachments in the plus system, it'll actually tell you what that attachment is doing. So once again, they're making sure that we are getting all the info we need throughout the game. It also looks here like they have added the zoom level, ammo count, and the actual keybinds to the plus system too. You can see in the middle it has 1, 2, 3, 4, and this gameplay is on PC, so those are just the, you know, the keys to use those attachments. And so on console we'll have either the Xbox or PlayStation buttons there, which is obviously very handy for first timers as well. Now lastly, we have the insertion flow and the end of round flow. If you don't know what those are, the insertion flow is essentially like everything that happens from loading into a game, choosing a weapon and spawning into the match, and then the end of round flow is what happens from when the game ends until you're back on the menus. Now these clips are quite a bit longer, so I will save my voice until the end of the video, and I'll just straight up show the start of a beta game versus the start of the new build, and then the end of the beta game versus the end of the new build, so that you guys can see exactly what is different.
Time to show these folks what's right. Let's give her.
Intelligence has revealed that amid satellite relaunches, the US is placing a prototype weapon into orbit. The launch site is here in French Guiana. Your mission is to breach the facility and do whatever it takes to prevent the Americans from occupying it. I won't lie, you can expect resistance as the Americans dig in, but this wouldn't be a first for you, would it? US forces retreating. Victory is ours.
Come on. This is too easy.
A good day's work, but I'm not one to...
So you can see a pretty stark difference there between those two. Honestly, I absolutely love those subtle changes. I know to some people this stuff might not even matter in the slightest, but those small like quality of life changes really do just add to any game for me. So I really love what they did there. The cinematics in the intro and the little end screen with the characters and their quips and stuff, I really liked those changes quite a bit. Now anyway, that is essentially it for all of the changes that we know of so far. Please do feel free to roast me down in the comments if I missed anything, and overall I am very happy with these changes, and I'm also really happy with the communication from DICE as well. Communication is something that they've often struggled quite a bit with, in my opinion. They tend to just sort of keep these kinds of things pretty quiet, and aside from that really quiet period after Exodus before they announced the delay, the communication for this game has been fantastic in my opinion. They've given us information on so many little elements that honestly we probably didn't even need to know, with those end screens being a prime example of that. I am going to give DICE credit where credit is due. I've roasted them forever about their terrible communication skills, but honestly they are doing a great job with it in these Battlefield briefings, and I just hope they really keep it up, not just now but throughout the entire lifespan of the game. In terms of the actual changes they showed us as well, I'm really happy about pretty much all of those changes. The only one I didn't love was that the scoreboard is still not all that great, but outside of that, literally every single thing they showed us is a great change in my opinion. The UI looks way better now, the start and the finish of the game looks really nice and sleek. They updated the loadout system and the ping system, and so overall I'm definitely very happy with most of the changes. For all the drama around that 1 month delay and whether it was even worth it, I think this kind of just shows how much they can actually do in a short time like that. Just think that the game would have launched with that shitty UI that it had in the beta, considering it would actually be out by now, and so even though it would have been updated eventually, I am okay with that month delay, just since they're clearly trying to show off the fact that they have actually changed a fair bit with that extra month. Let me know what you guys think about all of that down in the comments though. I personally love the changes, but I'm sure a lot of you guys might have some other opinions on it, so definitely feel free to let us all know down in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you guys are new to the channel, then consider subscribing and turning on those notifications. If you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.